Hi there, my name is Andy Cranston, and in this video I'm going to show you how to upgrade a Raritan intelligent PDU to Xerus firmware version 4.0.41. The plan consists of the following steps. We're going to determine the current version of the Xerus firmware. We're going to visit the raritan.com website. We're going to look at the latest firmware details and read the release notes. We'll then download the firmware zip file and unzip it. And in that zip file, there'll be a file with a .bin extension, and that file we will upload to the PDU using the web GUI. This will involve a reboot of the PDU, and finally we'll log into the web GUI and verify that the new firmware version has actually taken effect. So let's get started. Okay, so let's log into the Raritan web GUI for my PDU, which is called PX3Rack. Just make the font a bit bigger. Okay, so I'm going to log in. And we can see here that I'm currently running firmware version 3.6.1.5-46982, but basically 3.6.1. So let's go onto the Raritan website. If I click on the support link, now I've got a PX3 PDU, so I could select from this drop-down list from here, but I can also use this most viewed product link here as well for PX2, PX3, PXC and PXO. So I'll click on that, and we can see that the latest version of the Xerus firmware is 4.0.41. And the first thing I'm going to do is have a look at the release notes. Always a very good idea to look at the release notes and give those a read before you do the upgrade. There could well be very useful information in there. Now, I won't go through and read them all now. You can do that at your leisure. But one of the things that I will point out, there's a very useful section titled the Upgrade Matrix. And this basically tells us that if we're on a firmware version 3.5.x or 3.6.x, then we can upgrade straight to 4.0.41, which is great. That means that we don't have to upgrade to an intermediate version. And as we just saw, we're running version 3.6.1 on my PDU. So finished looking at the release notes. So the next thing is we're going to download the firmware zip file. You can see it downloading up here. Download is completed. And if I have a look in my download folder on my laptop, we can see here that it's downloaded the file. Don't be put off by the fact it's called PDU PX2. This also applies to a PX3 as well. So I'll now need to unzip that file. So I'm going to use my 7-zip file manager to unzip the file. I'm in the right downloads directory here, so click on the file, click extract, and I'll unzip it to the same directory. And if we have a look in the downloads file, it's created a subdirectory, and in there we've got the all-important bin file. So let's go back to our PDU, and if we click on maintenance, now if we just have a look at the tab firmware history, this is quite useful. This tells us when we last did our upgrade. So we can see here that we were at 3.5.0 and we went to 3.6.0. We've also done a 3.60 to 3.61. So now we're going to say that there have been two, since this unit came out of the factory, it's had two firmware upgrades. We're about to do its third one to get it to 4.0.1. And this will be a good screen that we'll look at afterwards. We should then see a third entry once we've got the firmware updated successfully. So if we click on the button here for Update Firmware, it tells us to browse and go find the file. So we'll go straight to downloads, into that subdirectory, click on the .bin file, click open, and then click the upload button. And this will start the firmware process. So it first of all uploads the image. Once uploaded, it will do some basic sanity checks, make sure that it is actually a recognized firmware image from Raritan. So it's telling us that we've currently got 3.6.1 installed and we're looking to upgrade to 4.0.41. It's compatible and the signature in it is valid as well. So that's great. I'm going to click on the button to update the firmware. and this will now run. I'll probably pause the video and we'll come back once it's finished. So that's the firmware successfully updated. The PDU is now rebooting. So we've got the login screen back. Let's log in. And if we look down here, we can see the firmware version is now reporting as 4.0.41, which indicates we've had a successful firmware upgrade, which is great news. And if we click on maintenance, and then if we look at that firmware history page again, remember we had 2 entries before, and now we've got a 3rd entry, which is indicating, so date today, 12th of August 2023. And we were at 3.6.1 and now we're at 4.0.41. So that's the firmware successfully updated. So we've seen how easy it is to upgrade a PDU to the latest firmware using the web GUI. But if you had hundreds or thousands of PDUs, then clearly manually upgrading such a large number using the web GUI is not practical. Now, if you have DSIM tools, data center infrastructure management, they might be able to help, especially if they've got features which are specific to Raritan products. But if implementing DSIM in your environment is not practical, you might have a lack of resources, of time, of people, overall cost, that's obviously a consideration in a business environment as well, then there are other approaches to allow you to upgrade large numbers of PDUs without DSIM. If you're interested in what some of those other approaches are, feel free to contact me for any advice. I'd be more than happy to help. My contact details are on the next slide. So it only remains for me to say thank you very much for watching. And if you would like to get in touch, as I say, my email address is andy@cranstonhub.com. Once again, thank you for watching.